It's the Bitcoin Capitalist Show, and we have Luis from Panama, who operates the Bitcoin Resuelve and Zero to Bitcoin podcast. And I am butchering it in English, and I'll let him say it in Spanish for you guys. So say hello, Luis.
Thanks, Travis. Hello. Yeah, so my Instagram and TikTok account is Bitcoin Resuelve. I publish Bitcoin content in Spanish. And then the podcast in Spanish would be the Cero A Bitcoin.
Now, Luis and I met through a mutual friend at the Bitcoin Miami conference, and we became we were instant hardcore Bitcoiners going by ourselves to the thing, and we totally hit it off and had a blast, and recorded some videos of him using the Lightning Network, ordering some cocktails in Miami. Now, you have a unique angle because you're from Panama. And most of these people that follow me and stuff, they're in the US. Now, can you tell them anything about Bitcoin and crypto adoption in Panama and how prevalent it is compared to like what you would see in the United States?
So in Panama, first off, well, to give a little background, I'm more a Bitcoin maxi, right? I don't know
Yeah.
your audience if they are more into Bitcoin or crypto or whatever. But in Panama, what I see is, I mean, which I guess you could say the same thing for any other country, but most of the people are into crypto and NFTs and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not many hardcore Bitcoiners. I would say there's not much adoption in the sense of businesses or restaurants accepting Bitcoin. Maybe you see one over here, one over there.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, the regulation is very unclear. So um, one of the members of the assembly in Panama of the Congress, he pushed a law for Bitcoin regulation in a positive way. So basically, so right now, difference different from the U.S. Panama simply has no law, nothing about Bitcoin. So what happens is because there's no regulation, there's no clarity, banks don't want to get involved, and there are a lot of obstacles. For example, to to do a wire transfer to an exchange to be able to buy and sell, you cannot do that because banks prohibit that transaction, which
Now,
doesn't happen in the US.
I know Tower Bank was getting involved a little bit. What does Tower
Yes.
Bank allow you to do with crypto deposits and stuff like that?
So I have not experienced firsthand with Tower Bank, but they do allow you to do the wire transfer or just so to put an example with another bank. If you buy or sell Bitcoin, you cannot say that it's Bitcoin or crypto because then you might get in trouble
They'll seize
later.
your account.
So yeah. So Tower Bank, they are pretty transparent. They do support it. Um, so well, the thing is, Binance now you cannot do like the wire transfer because the thing with the Silvergate Bank. But
So wait,
in a
I have a
sense,
question. I know that was affecting the US like customers, right? So that also is affecting Panama with
I think I'm not sure, but I think it's actually
the
the other way
opposite,
around.
the
Yeah,
international. Okay.
yeah, because the international have to deposit to that bank, which is like the correspondent bank.
But so
But within the US,
that just makes the gray market bigger where people are exchanging cash for USDT because they can't do it legitimately through banks and stuff. And that probably steers away a lot of people because they don't want to go to some dark alley and exchange $10,000 with some guy they met online. You know, no, that's interesting. In my experience with Panama compared, because I've been in Costa Rica a lot and I've been in Paraguay a lot, there's a lot of people in Bitcoin crypto in Panama compared to like Paraguay. And there's a lot of people in Costa Rica, believe it or not. And I think part of the reason why it's popular in Costa Rica is that you have a big online gambling scene and everyone's moving Bitcoin or USDT. Like there's big money moving around with the online gambling and sports betting in Costa Rica. But I'll also say this, in Costa Rica, I've never seen so many scams in my life. Like there's all these fake influencers where they'll buy like 1 million followers and they'll have some coin or promotion, but like it will say nothing about the coin or anything. It's just their lifestyle. And everyone knows it's a scam, but it's just like a speculation. Everyone's like, all right, we know this is a scam. We're gonna just go with it. And then it blows up and that person just leaves the country with their money. And it's like everyone stays silent because I know all these USDT dealers in Costa Rica, right? And they're like, business is great when one of these Ponzi schemes is on the way up because everyone's trying to get, convert cash to the USDT so they can buy whatever the new scam is. And I'm just shocked at like it's the Wild West in Costa Rica with all these scams. And I think people are just so new there. Like everyone just trying to get rich quick. And and with this down market, everyone just sees what crap a lot of these altcoins are.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin's down 67%. Everything else, I mean, these other coins are done. Like who's talking about chain link right now? Like, like these aren't taking over anything. The other thing is that people don't understand a lot is like no one talks about the Bitcoin Lightning Network and how that just gets rid of freaking Litecoin and all these other things because you have instant fast payments. And then the other thing is like I made a video the other day about CoinJoin, which is on the Wasabi wallet. So every payment in Bitcoin is public, right? And then, but everyone can know whose address, where your IP is, where you're receiving that, right? But what CoinJoin is you go on the Wasabi wallet and you mix and match your Bitcoin with other people's Bitcoin. So it's totally anonymous. And then that replaces the whole concept of Monero and privacy. So like as you see Bitcoin evolve, people build up these things that are replacing these altcoins that are solving one specific issue. So go for it.
Yeah, and it's funny seeing how the narratives of the altcoins change because they move to the next shiny toy to try to gain some relevance. For example,
I
even
saw
with
a video. I saw a video the other day, and I want to make like a video like this. It had like a couple years ago, and it had the top 20 cryptocurrencies by market cap. And the guy went through it, and no one could name one of them. They were all coins that all went under, disappeared. I was even shocked because I thought I knew, and I didn't recognize one of the, like besides like Bitcoin. I didn't recognize any of these coins. It was crazy.
that's
So they just
crazy.
come and go, and it's like unless you're on the inside or you're a founder and you have equity, you don't know what's going on. You're gonna get rug pulled. But at the same time, if you're a crypto influencer or you're in the industry, it is very hard to make any money without getting your hands dirty in this. And you look at some of the biggest names in Bitcoin, like Pomp, BlockFi, all this stuff, bankrupt, lost all his followers, all this money, all the big name people steered their following into the wrong direction. And but at the same time I understand it because like they're not doing it for free, and no one from Bitcoin is coming to pay you to do it. And people from companies are coming and pay you, give you equity. So that's why if you listen to anyone, you got to take it with a grain of salt because they got to make money and they're promoting something for a reason.
Yeah, I think that's when the Bitcoiners themselves. I mean, they have to stick to their values and only promote stuff they really do use and believe in. And I think the problem that happened with BlockFi, FTX, Celsius was that many of these Bitcoiners actually they did believe in those products, and maybe it was within their values because it's you get some yield on your Bitcoin. I mean, the lending market is not gonna go away if we move to a Bitcoinized world. You're gonna have debt, you're gonna have leverage, you're gonna have some lending. So in that, you're gonna have banks. So in that sense,
Yeah.
they're saying like, hey,
Yeah,
I mean,
they didn't betray too much, but I had a conversation. I had a friend who was a very young guy, retired off of Bitcoin, and he's down in Paraguay, and we were having some beers, and this is before the bear market, and he was asked me like where I kept my Bitcoin, and I was like, oh, I keep it, Cold Card Ledger, or a couple different places. And I'm like, where do you keep it? And he's like, oh, got it on this company called Celsius. And he's like, I'm getting like 6-7% returns. You got to put your money on there. And we're having beers. And I asked him one simple question. I was like, what are they investing in where they're making 10%, say, to pay you that 6 or 7%? And he couldn't tell me. And then he kind of thought about it. And then we just went on to the next subject. And flash forward a year later, he lost a couple $100,000 on Celsius, and then he got money off of I think BlockFi, or the other big one, like a day before FTX. He got his money off a day before FTX went under. And I had a friend down in Paraguay also. He lost 600 grand on FTX, and that's one of the crazy videos that went viral for me. I did about SBF. Like where I said, hey, what would you happen if you ran into him and you lost 600 grand at the airport? And he was an older guy, very wealthy international businessman. And he, for some reason, thought the exchanges would last longer than the banks during like a currency collapse. So he was just parked 600 grand in Bitcoin on FTX, wasn't trading. It was just sitting there instead of just putting it into a wallet or cold storage or with another company. And he had hired someone to do it. Like, he didn't know how to personally do it. And when it went under, he didn't have the means to just like move it because he didn't know anything. So he trusted me enough.
wow.
And he had more money on Binance. And, there's a lot of smoke with Binance where he trusted me. So I moved his money off of Binance for him onto a ledger. And, a lot of people lost a lot of money. And, I can't believe this SBF guy's out on bail with a computer moving his money around, because you can see his addresses. He's moving money around. And that guy should just be locked up and thrown away. And now, touchy subject is I post some videos where I'm like, hey, Binance could be in trouble. The government wants to take down Bitcoin. The big juicy target is Binance. And like any exchange, they have leverage. And if you make a bank run, just like any fiat bank, they can go under. Doesn't matter how healthy you think they are. Now, what do you think about Binance, and what do you think about their future? What do you think about all these crackdowns that are starting to happen?
Well, I'm not going to put my hand in fire for anyone. And I think that when these rumors start getting out and gain some momentum, it's better be safe than sorry, and get your shit out of there.
Well, and that's what everyone's doing. Everyone's like, well, why am I going to take the risk? They click one button and then all their equity is disappearing. And what's scary to me is like, if I'm the US government and I don't want any competition with the dollar and you want to bring the hammer down, there's two things you do. You take out Binance, and when you take out Binance, the BNB coin goes bye-bye. Every crypto on the BNB smart chain goes under if their coin goes under. So that's just like an extinction event. And the other thing is you take out USDT. And I mean, no one knows, everyone turns a blind eye to USDT because everyone needs it to move money. It's so convenient that like there's always guys like on Twitter that have their, what's that? Bitfinex or whatever. He's a super popular account where he's just posting every day about like the USDT like scam. I'm like, bro, everyone knows it's a scam. No one cares. Like, you could post like hard evidence where they're talking on videos. Like, everyone still needs it. And a lot of these people don't understand how important it is in Central and South America, right? Like, you're talking about how hard it is to do the banking there. We're like in the US, you can just transfer money from your Bank of America account to Coinbase and buy it. You cannot do that in Panama, Costa Rica. You got to take your $3,000, meet a dude in a parking lot, buy USDT, transfer the USDT to Binance, then buy, then trade. So if USDT goes, that whole region, there's no way to move any cash. And if you think the banks are bad in Panama, go to Paraguay. Like you can't move any money in and out of that country. It is like it's bad. So
Yeah.
those are the linchpins for the crypto ecosystem. Now, what do you think about this theory I have? Say the government starts going after USDT and there's all this crypto money and you can't, it's even hard now to start liquidating and moving it to USD and back into banks. Don't you think all these people just all of a sudden could just liquidate it and convert it into Bitcoin on all these exchanges and then move their Bitcoin off because they could have a hard time converting it to cash and using the banks, and they think all these other things are going to go under, and there could just be like a mass exit in the Bitcoin. Do you think that could happen?
You mean like a bank run on, I mean, like people going into Bitcoin because they're
Okay, so like
escaping.
say all there's all these billions of dollars right on these exchanges and altcoins in USDT, and then all of a sudden the writings on, well, the US government's going to take down USDT, and you're sitting on these USDT, and most of these people are just converting back and forth. Everyone, if I was sitting on $1 million in USDT, I just convert it into Bitcoin and then move it off the exchange.
Yeah.
So like I think all these people could convert out of that into Bitcoin, which could maybe make it like a short squeeze where all these people are jumping into Bitcoin. And it's the opposite of what a lot of these traders are thinking. And man, do not trade Bitcoin, do not trade crypto. Every TikTok influencer I've listened to is like, oh, shorting, telling other people the last 2 weeks how to short, and they've all just got crushed.
Well, I would say so. It's interesting the point you bring, because I think most people, their train of thought is that if USDT goes under or crashes, then Bitcoin is going to go down as well, right? Maybe not like forever, but it's going to go down and suffer a dump, a bear market or something. And you're saying, well, maybe everybody's escaping USDT and it creates a short squeeze on Bitcoin.
Yeah, because everyone
I
will
would,
convert into Bitcoin, and especially since it's making it harder for them to convert their USDT in the US dollars and then transfer it to a bank account. So, I mean, what are you want to convert your money into like Litecoin and then be hoarding? I think everyone knows kind of what Bitcoin is now. And for me, like, I think I've already know what Bitcoin is, and now I'm trying to build businesses around it and go there. And I think a lot of people are trying to do the Bitcoin education and all this stuff, and I think people kind of know what it is. Maybe I think people are still coming to it in Central and South America, but I think like 1 in 3 people own crypto now in the US. So I don't think crypto is going anywhere, and I see like a future where you could see companies like Google and Amazon issuing their own, like Apple issuing their own crypto, and it's good for credit at the stores, and like the whole concept's not going anywhere in my opinion, and so
yeah. I mean, in my opinion, Apple creating their own crypto token, that's basically like airline miles.
yeah.
It's just a token you can use within the company, and yeah, I don't see any more value to it. But I know that people are gonna speculate, and it will have its rally or whatever. But what I was gonna say, coming back to the USDT thing, is that if people anticipate that something's wrong with USDT and they move their funds in time, then it could happen what you say. But what I think would most likely happen is that if such an event occurs, I mean, people are not going to be fast enough, and they're going to get caught in the USDT crash, and then they lose a lot of money, and now they don't have enough to buy Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and that could create a dump in the Bitcoin price.
No, I in my book, I've been wrong a lot. I kind of think though we're going to have these interest rates are going to keep going up, and they're going to crash the economy because there's so much leverage in the US and global economy. There's so much speculation still that like these rates going up, things are going to start breaking. And when things break, not one segment is protected in the economy. So like there's going to be a broad sell-off in everything. And, you know, but I do believe that Bitcoin's the last free market left, and that's why Bitcoin's so great is like there's no one controlling the price, where like all of a sudden the Fed can come out and just give, you know, BlackRock $1 trillion to keep buying real estate, and there's no free market in real estate. Oh, you don't have to pay your mortgage anymore. Oh, here, BlackRock, here's $10 billion, buy these stocks. So they can put floors in, where Bitcoin, there's no one protecting it. It's total free market. And I think it's the first one down, but also the first one out of the trenches when things turn around. And I think when things turn around, they're going to happen so fast, and everyone thinks they're timing it, and they're going to be late. And I think, boom, you're going to wake up with 30 grand again. And there will be a lot of huge short squeezes on the upside. Now, kind of what I'm thinking is that in this next bull run, when Bitcoin gets around 100,000 is when you're going to start seeing some really heavy regulation, and the United States actually freaking out a little bit about Bitcoin. And I think you could see bans in Western countries around 100,000, and you won't believe what they'll say about it. Oh, it's killing the environment. It's all money laundering. You will hear the biggest FUD ever. And so for me, that's why I'm a big believer in getting my permanent residencies in other countries, getting established. Because like if you're a big Bitcoiner, I'm like, it could be illegal to transact, and I think in the future. And that's just kind of my thinking on that. I don't know. What do you think about that? You think it's just going to have free market and the governments aren't going to touch it?
No, I mean, there's definitely gonna be war with the governments. I mean, they're not gonna let it happen easily. I don't
Yeah.
know when or how they're gonna attack it or push back, but there's definitely gonna be some resistance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're probably at some point are gonna roll out their CBDCs. I
Yeah.
don't know in what shape or form, because if it's a CBDC directly that you give directly to the people, then you're basically bypassing the banks. And
It's
what a secondary effect would that
what,
create?
like I was at a party the other week with a bunch of very wealthy people, and it's like this conversation you and I are having. Everyone's having the same exact conversation. All these wealthy business people. I'm talking to a guy worth over $100 million. He's saying the same exact stuff. He's just like, housing's going to crash. All this stuff's going to crash. The next bailout's going to come, and that bailout and the amount, the package to bail out this next crisis that's coming is going to be so big, it will dwarf the 2009 deal. And that's when you're going to see real inflation. We're at like 10, 12%. You're going to see like 20, 30%. And there'll be a scramble for, you know, Bitcoin, hard assets and stuff like that. And that's when I really think you're going to get kind of a culture shift in the US, where it's just going to turn into, there's going to be so much wealth inequality, and you're just going to see this eat the rich. They're not paying enough taxes, and you're really going to see it come down on the 1% in the US. And I think a lot of the doors for, you know, leaving or getting second passports, or they could institute big exit taxes is what I'm thinking in the future. And I don't know if you ever read, but like one of the top books that stirred me into my thinking is The Sovereign Individual, which was like, did you ever read that?
I started reading it, but I
Oh,
haven't finished.
unbelievable book, like forecasting book by two guys. And
Yeah.
it's like, I read it, and then I was like, I didn't know when it had been written. And I was like, oh, these guys just like are making this up. And I was like, oh my God, this was written so long ago. Like they literally predicted pandemics, all kinds of stuff where the government's gonna, you know, try to stop you from leaving. And they talked about Bitcoin before Bitcoin was invented. They're like, there's gonna be like e-cash, and then the government's not going to be able to forcibly collect taxes on people, and then they start losing, you know, control and power. And you'll see a lot of countries kind of just turn into like businesses, like in El Salvador, where it's like it's more of a business. Like, hey, because you have to attract the wealth with free money, right? Oh, come here. We're going to provide security. We're going to provide this, and if you pay us this tax, and then things are going to get super competitive, and you're going to see the wealthy go to these jurisdictions where they're going to get treated right. And the amount of misinformation and stuff against El Salvador is just incredible. Now, you being so close to El Salvador, what do you think is going on there? Do you think this Bitcoin City is going to happen? Do you think it's, pie in the sky stuff? Do you think Nayib Bukele is going to get it done? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, geographically, I guess I'm closer, but I've never been to El Salvador. I mean, I think Bukele is gonna get it done. He seems like the kind of man who keeps pushing on what he sets out to do. He's probably gonna get reelected. I don't know if he'll become a dictator or not. I mean, he certainly has some tendencies, but in terms of Bitcoin, I mean, he's gonna keep pushing, keep doing what he's been doing, not
When
backing up.
Whenever I post anything about Nayib Bukele, if you look at the comments and stuff, people are fervent supporters. And a lot of the El Salvadorians, like in California, if you mention his name, they are just the strongest supporters. They are like, he's the greatest president in that country's history. And have you seen the viral video of the prisoners yet?
Yes.
So they built that mega prison because they have the serious gang problem with MS-13, 18th Street, where they commit crimes in the U.S. We fly them back there, and then, it messes up the country. But they're saying that the crime rate and murder rate is like collapsed there, like 50+% since they instituted a lot of these restrictions. And I think they're making all the right moves because, like, if you're US Bitcoiner, and you're like, oh, why am I going to leave California and go to, El Salvador? They have all these gangs. It's not safe. They don't have infrastructure. And I really think they're kind of heading in the right direction where, like, they're going to start building out the infrastructure. They're cleaning it up for, tourism. And if you look at the numbers, any money they lost on Bitcoin, they probably made up in tourism revenue because no one had ever thought about going there, heard of it. And it's like every other Bitcoin person I've met in Central America is gone. Spent money, stayed at hotels. So it's at the end of the day, it's just a giant marketing ploy. And I'm looking at Panama's economy, and it sucks. Like, to be frank with you, I'm like, you got a couple people that own everything in the country, and then everyone else. And I'm like, there's nothing going on besides the canal and tourism. And then with COVID, the country was shut to foreigners for like 2 years, and all the restaurants went out of business, all this stuff. I mean, things are opening back up, but I was like, there's nothing going on really. And when they ended the Friendly Nations visa, why would they do that? That was one of their main sources of income, and that was known as, an expat, international hub, international business place, and all the expats left. And anecdotally, like personally, I know all these people that were living there were expats and living. I'd say 95% of them all left. I barely there's a huge group of people I all know that were living. They're all left. A lot of them went to like Guadalajara, Mexico. A lot of them went to Paraguay. And I think, people kind of want to have an attachment where they're investing. They want to be a resident. They don't want to be spending $1 million on a business there when they're not even like a chance to become a resident or citizen. And I talked to the attorney that processed me in Panama. And when they were doing the Friendly Nations, man, like there was a line. You were just like cattle, man. They were just pumping in and out. He said they did like 3 or 4 investment residencies last year. Like since they changed it, he's done 3 or 4 people. He was doing like 10 people a day with the other deal. And those are all people staying there, investing there. So I really see like, the free market, and all of a sudden El Salvador starts attracting all these people. Expats from Panama are going there, and they clean it up, and the infrastructure starts going on. Panama and these other countries, they're going to have to come up with something. They can't just do the same old because all that money is going to leave. And they start doing Bitcoin banking and all kinds of stuff in El Salvador. All that money is going to leave Panama for El Salvador once they start getting some infrastructure going. And the other thing is like, I don't think Bitcoin will be legal in Panama because it's under the U.S. control. I mean, the U.S. military is all over the place. It's with the canal. It is a very strategic place for the United States, and we control it. And it's like they had that bill. It passed all the whatever assemblies there. All the they had to be done was the president had to sign it, right? And he didn't sign it.
Yeah, he
Why?
didn't sign it.
Why? Probably U.S. influence. They told him if you sign that, like things are going to be bad. So I just don't think Panama will be next in line to adopt Bitcoin anytime soon.
No, and not with the government that we have. I mean, we have elections next year, but I mean, the picture doesn't look pretty. I mean, I would love to have a Bukele here, honestly. I mean,
Yeah,
what he's doing in El Salvador, however controversial it is, but I
yeah.
mean, he's getting it done, and people. You say people are supporters, and that's because I mean they're they they
People were
are
sick.
living through the
People were sick of business as usual because it wasn't working.
yeah, and I mean the security thing over there was a real issue, and
Yeah,
like people didn't go outdoors because they didn't feel secure, and he fixed that, and they can live they can see the difference. In Panama, we don't have that problem, the security problem, but I mean, we're starting to get tired of the same old corruption with the governments.
yeah.
That I would love to have a Bukele here, but I always want to be cautious because there is that risk long term that Bukele is, you know, gaining popularity right now, doing the right things, and then he gets reelected and gains too much power and becomes
Yeah,
a dictator, and you know, there is that risk, and
yeah,
I know Salvadorians love him right now, but you know that's part of his plan maybe,
yeah.
and I just don't want to get too caught up in the hype and
No,
around
and
him
you know
because
what? And Bitcoin's bigger than everyone, and you know what? But he's making the right moves now, and we'll see if he continues to stay, you know, true to everything he's doing. And you know what's funny is like I've been going to Panama on and off for a very long time, for years, even before I was a resident. And I don't think I've ever heard one Panamanian say one nice thing about anyone in the government or anything good about the government. And but it's refreshing for me with like, you know, politics blasted at you 24/7 being the United States. Like going down there, I'm like, I couldn't name you one politician's name in Panama. It's very refreshing. The only my major complaint, which is everyone's complaint about Panama, is the roads are absolutely terrible. The traffic is absolutely terrible.
yeah.
When it rains there, it's the whole country's at a standstill. And it's just mind-boggling because Panama's not poor. They have the canal, they have revenue, and it's like nothing gets fixed. Where's all this money going? And I understand people's frustration where there was like I think the U.S. gave Panama $2 billion in COVID aid. Like, where did that money go? There was no stimulus there. Like, no one knows where any of that money went. And you know, they had, you know, a lot of unrest where people were on the streets. It was very civilized unrest. Like people weren't looting. It was just
Yeah.
people kind of got fed up, and there was a lot of shutdown of the streets and stuff like that. And I don't want to burst anyone's bubble too, but like on Paraguay, because like I remember before I had gone down there, I was like on Twitter, and there's like one congressman who had the laser eyes who's like, "Oh, Paraguay is going to be next." I've been out there multiple
Right.
times. No one's brought that guy's name up once. He disappeared. There's no one in the government talking about Bitcoin. It's not going to get legalized there. What's going to happen with Bitcoin? The private sector is just doing it. Like the government, these people don't even know what Bitcoin is in Paraguay, but Bitcoin mining is blowing up there right now. The mines, the infrastructure being built, it's just private sector, people from China. It's the money is flowing, and these government people, all they realize, all they understand is money, and this is generating money, and people are spending money, and they're liking that. And why Paraguay, I think, will be the Bitcoin mining capital of the world is because they have the second largest hydroelectric dam in the world was behind China, and they built it with Brazil. It's the Itapu Dam. And so Paraguay doesn't have any industry, right? So for years, they're selling their share of the energy back to Brazil for pennies on the dollar because they couldn't consume it. It either goes to waste. So Brazil's totally benefited from this whole dynamic. And all of a sudden, Bitcoin mining comes along. So Paraguay can be like, well, we can mine all this extra energy. And it's all, no environment harm. It's all from the water. And so no environmentalist can complain. It's completely 100% just hydroelectric power. And so now, and not only that, but the dam's getting paid off this year. So there'll be no debt on this thing. So the price will even go down further. And it's like, I think you can mine down there for 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So Paraguay is one of the few places in the world where even what the prices were at 15, 16 grand, they are still mining at a profit. Where if you're in the US, I don't understand how any of those people are making money with your overhead costs, rental costs, cost of money. And I also think these people are building these huge plants in Texas. They're going to go belly up because not only are your energy costs, all this stuff are going to go up, the environmental crazies are going to come after you. And I think when they ban it, all your miners and stuff will be stuck. And I'm just a big believer in like long-term building mining operations in Paraguay where you're not going to get bothered. The energy is not going anywhere. And it's a very safe, comfortable jurisdiction. So I'm always steering people down there for the mining. But
yeah, I mean, there's clearly a big opportunity there, and I'm sure. I don't know if the government is mining, but I'm sure at some point they're gonna get into it over there.
no, they're going to get into it, and it's just too much money to be had. And I think it will get crazy there when the price goes back up. But like right now, it's crazy because like the cost of the Bitcoin miners were like 12 or 15 grand, and now you can get one for like 5. The price of mining equipment has collapsed, and a lot of people speculated on it, and there's just miners for sale everywhere right now on that front, because there was like a short squeeze too, because there was a chip shortage and the price was up. So it was like people, they were charging for the miners was crazy, and then you bought these prices and then the price goes down, like it's going to take you a long time to pay off the mining machines. And for me, I never got too much in the mining because it's a tough business to make money in. You got a lot of overhead, a lot of costs, a lot of things that can go wrong. Now, do you run a Lightning node, or you involved with that at all?
No, I actually have used Lightning very little. Like
Yeah.
like outside that Bitcoin conference, I've probably used Lightning like one or two other times because I'm not really like into spending Bitcoin. Although I would say that a couple of weeks ago we had some guys from Italy who visited here. We had a meetup, a Bitcoin meetup, etc. And I I really resonated with what they said, and was like, hey, we as Bitcoiners, we gotta try to spend our Bitcoin. We gotta spend our Bitcoin and then buy the Bitcoin again to make it up, right?
Hmm.
So I mean, we don't want to spend our Bitcoin, but I mean, if we do spend it and at
You
the
know,
same time buy to make it up, then I mean, maybe you lose a little percentage.
don't spend it. For me, Bitcoin is just the same as gold. I got gold. You don't go out and spend gold, right? It's a rainy
Well,
day.
but
It's your
I would,
like deep savings, right?
but
Just go spend.
I would say it depends on what your vision is for Bitcoin. Like if you envision Bitcoin being like global money and people should adopt it, accept it, spend it, use it in everyday use, or you see it as
Here's
more
the
of a store
perfect.
of value.
This is why Bitcoin is so perfect. Is when it is concentrated. There are very large holders of Bitcoin, right? And you're like, oh, well, if it's not getting diversified out into the public, trust me, when Bitcoin goes to 100, 200 grand, these people sitting on 20, $30 million, they want to go have fun. They want to go buy a nice car, a Rolex, go on, vacation, stay at nice hotels. They're going to spend their Bitcoin and it's going to go into the ecosystem. No one wants to just hoard all this fake wealth. It's going to once it gets to certain numbers, people are going to cash out. Now, for me, like what I had in mind was like, hey, when Bitcoin goes to those numbers, you borrow against it then. So like, how they BlockFi went under, like say there's a good BlockFi type of company where you can borrow against your Bitcoin and then it's a loan and then you can go spend that out and you're not losing all your Bitcoin. But like for me, I think one day you will be able to deposit, like at the Central Bank of Singapore and you'll get 3 or 4% interest on your Bitcoin. But I think it's too early to trust any of these, unregulated companies that are promising all these returns. And for me, the wildest part was like the Winklevoss twins with the Gemini app. They have that earn interest platform, and they're doing these 8 or 9% interest returns on altcoins, like completely made up speculative coins. And then they're offering like almost double-digit returns. And it was just a recipe for disaster. And then the whole earn interest thing went belly up. Because the company got that money. Where do they invest in it? Where they're making 15-20%. So, these altcoins aren't going to last, and hold on to your Bitcoin. Yeah, sometime in the future, you'll be able to like deposit it, get like 2 or 3%, and it will go. Now, what, enough of Bitcoin kind of right now. What, as a Panamanian, what do you think about the global economy? Do you think we're going to recession? What do you kind of think like macroeconomically is going on?
I think we're definitely going into a recession. I think the Fed is gonna get put in a very uncomfortable position, because on one end they're like trying to not raise the interests because they don't want to drive up inflation, but on the other end, you drive down the economy by doing that, and I don't think they can sustainably do it. So they're gonna have to, raise the interest again. Inflation is gonna drive up again, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're gonna get like the worst of both worlds. In long term, I think it's a feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
They will probably not get out of it easily, and that's when Bitcoin comes
Yeah.
in.
Now, how you're on the ground in Panama? How is the economy on the ground in Panama? Like, what are you seeing firsthand? Have the effects started happening there, or is it business as usual?
No, I mean, we have felt the inflation over here. I don't think it's as big as in the US,
Mm-hmm.
because the newly printed money gets to the US first, later to Panama, so we see a delayed effect. But we are already seeing it, and like salaries don't go up as much as the cost of living, and it's been like that for more than 30 years.
Yeah.
So for example, I asked my mother like what was her starting salary when she graduated from college, and it's maybe $200 less than what it is right now.
Wow.
uh and the cost of living 30 years from now to right now, it's 10x or something like that. And it's crazy. Like that's when you realize like inflation is something that is being manipulated. So it's caused by the manipulation of
Yeah.
the money supply, and Bitcoin fixes it.
The the wage, what people make in Panama compared to the cost, was shocking to me when I found out. Like, I have friends there, they're working like 14 hours a day for major American companies there with overtime, are making $600 a month. And I'm from Orange County in Southern California, where it's very expensive and stuff. And I go down to Panama, it's not that cheap down there either. And I'm like, I don't know how people are, it's one thing. I go to Paraguay, it is dirt cheap. Like for no money, you live like a king. The currency exchange is incredible for the dollar, but a lot of people don't know Panama's on the US dollar. And it's like the same prices back home, but people make like 75% less. And and they have the nice restaurants, and I went to like one meal there, like at a nice Italian, it was like $130. Like this is Orange County prices, and people are making $600 a month with like working for American companies there. So I really think there's kind of a boiling point because the wages are so stagnant. I don't know if that's because there's a big workforce pool where the employers don't have to pay that because they'll just get someone else to do it. But I also know Panama's not super popular among all these expats because you're not saving any money really going there. Like it's cheaper than like, hey, you're living in the States. But a lot of these expats like that are making like 80, 90 grand, like if you go down to like a Paraguay or Argentina, like you're living like like a king on that. And people are kind of going over Panama because it's on the dollar and you don't really get that bang for your buck on the exchange rate. But I do think like Panama could get a big pop because I think the next time there's a crisis or something like that, I think a lot of Americans are going to want to go to Panama. And Panama's not a big country, and just even a little influx will cause, the economy to grow. And I think it's such a good destination because like it's direct flight, 4+ hours from LAX, first class infrastructure, and people are still very ignorant of Panama. Like when I first started going there, I'm like, oh, I'm going to Panama. I think it's like the jungle. And I would send pictures of sky rises. And they're like, where are you? Is that like Hong Kong? I'm like, no, it's Panama. And I think I read some stat. I could be making this up, but like if you put Panama City in the United States, it would be like the third or fourth largest skyline behind Chicago.
Really?
Yeah, I read that somewhere. I could be making that up, but don't quote me on that. And I think a lot of Americans are kind of ignorant to like how developed Panama actually is and nice it is. And I think there could be an influx of people coming down, especially pensionados, like people that want to retire can go down there, maybe go to somewhere more of the beach areas of Panama. Now, like, are you in the basket of like kind of like craziness? Like, you think the dollar will collapse one day, or you think it's just going to be a gradual thing and then we'll have some replacement? Like for me, I kind of think there's going to be like a craziness period where we transition to the next thing. And during that period, you're going to want to own like Bitcoin, gold and silver and hard assets. And then you can buy back into whatever's the new thing. And for me, like that first time that really hit me was like during COVID. And it was like, all right, I have all this money, but I went to the grocery store and there's no food. I went on Amazon. I don't know, buy all this stuff. You go to the gun store. There's no, like, you couldn't buy anything with your money. And that's when I was like, wow, you want to own real things at a certain point. Now, like how do you feel about that? Because I'm crazy, obviously.
No, I mean, I do see the US dollar collapsing, but I think it will be more of a gradual thing.
Yeah.
There might be a point where the collapse accelerates a little bit. But I think it'll be gradual. I mean, the US dollar still has a lot of things going for it. Many
Well,
of
you know
these
what?
countries, I don't know in Paraguay, but Argentina with the hyperinflation, I mean, there's so much demand for dollars in other countries,
That
and
the dollar milkshake theory has come true. The dollar is not only becoming stronger, but it's growing, and I've seen it firsthand. And I listened to Michael Saylor, and he was saying the same thing back a while ago, and people couldn't fathom it because he's a Bitcoiner, but he's totally correct. And I've seen it firsthand on the streets down in Paraguay and all these countries. Is the dollar and Bitcoin are expanding together. So you're, in Argentina, you're in Chile, their currencies are crashing right now. And what do people want? People want dollars and they want Bitcoin. And I think the demand for both those is going to grow, and the US dollar is just expanding everywhere. And as all these developing countries' currencies become worthless, they got to get into another currency, and that's the dollar. And I also think that Bitcoin's going to keep going, expanding with the dollar. So what do you think? Do you think they're both going to grow together?
Yeah, I mean, I think the dollar is gonna gain some strength before its
Before the
collapse,
end,
because yeah, yeah, because all these other countries are so much worse than, and they want dollars first before Bitcoin. I mean,
it's
Bitcoin solves the root cause of the problem they are having with their currency, but they want the dollar because it's just better and it's more stable and it's more globally accepted. So it's gonna be a gradual thing for the
it's kind
dollar
of
to
like a doom
collapse.
loop. It's like a doom loop because the stronger the dollar gets, the weaker the other currencies get, and they collapse. But then it gets weird because the Fed knows this. So then the Fed's going to be like trying to print more money to weaken it, and it's just this never-ending cycle. And it was like in the 2009 financial crisis, it was like very little was known, but the U.S. was sending billions of dollars over to Europe and bailing out, giving them all the reserves, and like there's stuff that we don't even know about that happened. And I read this old thing by Jim Rickards, which I found very interesting, where he's having an off-the-cuff conversation with one of the top people for BlackRock, and they were having drinks, and the person was complaining that, oh, the government's regulating us, we have to do all this, and he's like, oh, like who cares? Like you're a billion-dollar company that's a couple $1 million in compliance, and they're like, no, you don't understand. Like they have a direct line into us where they can just press a button and it freezes all transactions at BlackRock. Nothing will move or sell. And they have this, the government has gone into every too big to fail institution in the United States secretly, pretty much. And they have, these hotlines where they can just freeze everything. So a lot of it's done in case there's a financial attack or say a cyber attack where it doesn't spark more chaos, they can freeze it. But to me, that could even cause more chaos where like, oh man, I need to get my money out. It's frozen right now. And can you imagine what's the price of Bitcoin if people are frozen out of their bank accounts to all this stuff and Bitcoin's the only thing moving? It would be,
Yeah.
and you look at the New York Stock Exchange and all these places, it's a centralized computer system, and how sophisticated hacking is. It's only a matter of time someone could take this down. Bitcoin's the only network that's pretty much unhackable, and no one can take it down. And you could have these cyber attacks or major exchanges or stuff. Bitcoin's freaking trading like normal. The problem is people wouldn't be able to move their money to buy Bitcoin, so the price would be whatever. Maybe if you're in another country and you could get your funds onto it. But I don't want to bore you to death. It was a great conversation, Luis. We'll have to revisit and see if we're correct on any of these issues, in the future. And I think it's just a down period. We're flushing out all the altcoins, all the weak hands are going bye-bye, and it's going to be another bull run. And I'm like, Bitcoin's what, at like $25,000? The gold people aren't even talking about like how Bitcoin's still like 12, 13 times the price of freaking gold right now. It's I post stuff online. Everyone's like, it's going to zero. I'm like, it just rebounded at $25,000. That's incredible. It's one of the fastest growing assets in the world. And I'm like, just zoom out. It's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to expand. And you look at the adoption of like a Facebook and Google, it was extremely volatile. And if you want to make money on Bitcoin, you have to own it now it's volatile, because when it gets to the size of where Facebook's at now, it's just the steady Freddy. You're not going to make the multiples. And the other thing is you're not going to get rich quick on Bitcoin, right? Like, hey, yeah, you might make 5-10 times your money holding it over the years, but like you got to go out, start a business, create products and services people want. You can't just sit on Bitcoin and make money. So that's my message. Anything in
Yeah, I would
conclusion?
say, yeah, I would say for sure don't get into Bitcoin if you're looking to get rich quick, which is what most people do and get sucked up into scams and everything. Because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is very volatile. Most likely than not, whenever you enter Bitcoin, it's going to crash at some point before you enjoy the bull run. And most people, if they don't know enough about Bitcoin, they're going to be weak hands. They're probably going to sell at a loss. They or maybe they put too much, more than they could handle, and they're forced to sell. So don't do that. Get educated, put a little into Bitcoin, think long term, and yeah, just enjoy the process.
All right. Well, thank you for the time. I'm gonna follow and subscribe, and I'm gonna put all the links to Luis's Instagram, social handles, and a link to his Spotify podcast. And if you speak Spanish, I mean, this is one of the top Spanish podcasts that are out there. And you know what? There's not a lot of Spanish Bitcoin education out there. There's very few, and you're kind of paving the
Yeah.
wave. And don't get discouraged. It's just early, and we're gonna be laughing in a couple of years from now. I think what you guys are doing are really pioneering, and I think when the price turns around, there's gonna be so many people trying to figure out what this is all about, and especially in Latin America, where there's not a ton of financial education. A lot of people are unbanked, and it's going to be a big learning process. And I think you guys are delivering that to them. So thank you again. Have a good night.
Well, thanks so much for having me.